What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Lineup HQ NBA. We're Showdown show. We're getting into Game 3 here. We're just running through the motions here and seeing if we can't throw some stuff at the wall and see if it sticks. Joined today by John Breslin, a true DFS legend here, man. Plenty of accolades to go around. I can't even name them all, but we did a Game 1 for you. Didn't get a Game 2. It landed on an inopportune time, but we're back for Game 3 and Game 4. And now it starts to get interesting, if you want to say that. You know, minor tweaks, the way you separate yourself from the field is going to be different because everybody's kind of funneling into they're seeing the same things now. So it's going to be very interesting to see how we get through this. But bring in John here. John, how you doing, man?
Good. I had a nice, profitable experience. The first two games, we were like a game early with the Kevin Love captain lineup that we did for Game 1. But yeah, it was a big game in Game 2. Miami pulled out a win on the road, which I think that's going to be huge in this final series. Like going into Denver and getting a win is not easy. The biggest rotation changes we saw in Game 2, where Kevin Love starting over Caleb Martin. But like the biggest minutes hit went to Haywood Highsmith. And then for Denver, like Michael Porter Jr. has looked terrible so far this series. I think he's shooting like 3 of 17 from 3 and like 7 of 24 overall. So he saw 17 less minutes. Those seem to be distributed to like the Denver bench pieces. Jeff Green, Christian Brown, and Bruce Brown. And on on the DFS side, going into Game 3, like FanDuel has adjusted their prices a lot. Like MPJ is down 1,500. DraftKings not so much. You can still get Kevin Love like 2,400 by Christian Brown and like 1,200. So makes for some interesting lineup constructions.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was gonna be one of my main talking points was the whole Kevin Love experience. We said Game 1, this is the way maybe they're going to go, and they absolutely. I'd have to pull up the box score to see if he even got on the floor, but no, he didn't even play in Game 1. And then all of a sudden, and I was still going to go back with some Kevin Love, and then they say he's starting. So now everybody's like, man, it just sometimes DFS breaks like that for you. It really stinks, but. So now everybody will probably be back on Kevin Love again because he had a really good game, and they didn't adjust the price very much at all on DraftKings. So it's going to be tough, but let's just get into building on DraftKings then. I mean, we got a Kevin Love sitting down there at $2,400, and like he's not – that was the way. That was a big adjustment, and it helps out so much having him on the floor if you're Miami as opposed to some of the other minutes they were giving out there. He really helps with the defense on Jokic, believe it or not. And then we know he's a very accomplished 3-point shooter and a passer. So like it just helps having him out there. I say he probably gonna get around the same minutes, if not more, this game. What do we do with Kevin Love if we think he's gonna be, sort of popular there?
It's tough to get away because it's the finals, and so everyone's playing big minutes. Like we know Butler and Jokic are going to play huge minutes. It's like a 2,400 value piece. I mean, it's critical. If he's starting again, you have to roll him out there. I think you have to roll him out there in some captain lineups. I mean, he might be more of like a cash game captain if he's starting, and then it'll be tough to get away from him in tournaments, even in the utility spots. It's gonna be tough to get away from him. Like he didn't play like huge minutes. Like he's not playing like 40 minutes, but that's 2,400, and he lets you fit in like Jokic and Butler. And I like him as part of our lineup. If we're building out like a tournament lineup, I don't think we have to put him in the captain spot. But yeah, I'm going to be playing a lot of Kevin Love, assuming he's in the starting lineup again.
And I don't see why they would change any of that. So that's one spot right there, and then another spot. Unfortunately, in Showdown, this is what we get sometimes, is Nikola Jokic. Now, where you choose to play him captain or utility is up to you, but what he's doing in the finals wouldn't necessarily, if this were a 3 or a 4 game slate, maybe we could fade that. 60 points is fine. At his salary, it's not great, but we're in a showdown, And that's almost 20 points each game better than the next closest guy. Like you can't win not having that at some point in your somewhere in your lineup. So there's a second spot that almost seems like a lock. What's up with Jokic?
They raised his price again. I mean, he's really expensive, 15,200. But I mean, the points that he's putting up, especially for DraftKings, where you get like a double bonus. I mean, like he's going to get a double, right? Like you just put those points in for him right now. And probably got a 50-50 shot about it getting a triple-double. So, yeah, I mean, he's putting up like 60 points almost every single game. But I don't know about raising his price going on the road now in Miami. Denver's still favored in the game by 2.5 points. Like that's not as much as game one. So I don't know why he's so much more expensive. It opens up an interesting possibility because I think Jimmy Butler is actually a little bit priced down. Like we talked about in game one, Butler was so expensive. But now he's $1,400 cheaper than he was in game one, and he's playing at home. So I like Jokic, obviously. Everyone's going to like Jokic. He's by far the highest projected player. But I kind of like the idea of maybe going a little bit underweight Jokic if you're doing multiple lineups and going a little bit overweight Jimmy Butler, just given that the situation now is so much different than it was in game one with Butler being cheaper and playing at home.
Let me ask you this. If I tell you before the game that Jokic is going to be, even at this price, whatever price, he's going to be 15 to 20 points better than everybody else on the court tonight, and we're in a showdown. At what point, like what would the price have to be to make you not want to play him, to fade him altogether?
I don't know about fading him altogether. That's really tough.
Yeah.
And the reason it's tough is because you still have those value pieces, like with Kevin Love, Christian Brown is still 1,200. Like Jeff Green is like 1,800. Like that's too cheap for the Denver bench pieces and for Kevin Love. Like you're getting a starter at 2,400 for Miami most likely. And I think you could see even more minutes for the Denver bench guys tonight if they're limiting like Michael Porter Jr. a little bit relative to the other guys playing the huge 40 minutes in the finals. What I like is I like the idea of going underweight Jokic in the captain spot, but still having him in like the majority of my DraftKings lineups at the utility spot, and just going with other guys at the captain spot. Like with the salary multiplier in the captain spot, it's like price really hurts you. Like basketball is a game about efficiency and value, and like Jokic is 15,200. Like that's 3,200 more than anybody else on the court. So I'll still be playing a lot of Jokic in the utility spot, but I'll probably end up underweight him in captain.
Okay. And then that's going to lead me into another question I have here. So statement/question. If we're playing a cash game and I'm just looking at Jimmy Butler versus Jamal Murray, there's only a $600 difference there. I'm probably going to take Jimmy Butler at home here, considering that I'm also looking at the way Miami came out and played in game two, and they kind of wanted to make Jokic the guy who scores a lot, or I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but Jokic was the main scorer for like 41 points, real life points, where, I had the under on all the prop sites on Jokic's points. So that was pretty sad, but they made him the scorer and they kind of took Jamal Murray scoring out of it somewhat. And that might be something they try to do again and duplicate. If I'm looking at Butler Murray in cash games, I'm favoring Butler. And my head is telling me Jimmy Butler in that matchup. And the price is so close. Why would I ever take Jamal Murray if I think they're going to take some of the scoring away? That's what he does best for DFS. But in tournaments, maybe we switch that, and maybe everybody has that train of thought. And maybe it's a Jamal Murray game. What do you think about Murray?
Yeah, I like that idea. I mean, he still took 15 shots in game two, and you never know when he's going to get hot in three. I mean, he shot 3 of 8, so that's not terrible at all. But I mean, if that's 6 of 8, which is obviously on the board, I mean, it's an outlier performance, but it's not crazy. Then yeah, I think Jamal Murray could end up being underowned just because you're right. The closeness in price there between him and Jimmy Butler, and yeah, everybody's going to end up clicking on Jimmy Butler. And when you build these like showdown lineups, so often you're ending up with a good amount of money on the table, especially with the value pieces we've got. So I think it'll be much easier for people to click on that Jimmy Butler name, especially with him at home. So yeah, I like the idea of being overweight Jamal Murray.
All right, we've talked through a few players, and then we can start building a lineup here, and then talk through the rest as we go. But that's kind of where I want to start in this captain spot. Do we want to go? I like the idea of a Kevin Love. If he's going to be popular and you're not going to fade him anyway, why not just jam him in at captain and take the savings, and then we can fit a whole bunch of really good players in the utility spot. Well, that's my thought on the captain spot. What's your opinion on the captain spot?
I like the idea of putting Kevin Love in there, but I think he's going to be popular as well. I think if you're doing a Kevin Love captain lineup in tournaments, if he's getting the starting nod again,
you're going to have to get different somewhere else.
Yeah, you're going to have to get different because I think he's going to be very popular. Maybe 15, 20, maybe even more ownership at the captain spot.
Okay. Well, do you have any other guys that you would? Let's talk through it and see what are the other options there at captain that you like.
Somebody I would put in. I mentioned it in the Game 1 show, but Bam Adebayo. I think this is a much better series for him than last series. His price has gone up a little bit on DraftKings. Actually, it's gone up since Game 2. He's 9,000 tonight. Was 8,800 for Game 2. Was 9,200 in Game 1. I still like him a lot. He's having a good series, and I think there's a good chance he'll at least put up a double-double, maybe even 20 points. Last game he had 21 points, 9 rebounds. Game 1, 26 points and 13 rebounds. I have no idea why they lowered his price after Game 1. But yeah, this is a much better series for him, and I like him playing at home. I think we're going to see more offense out of Bam Adebayo. So if people are thinking that it's been a fluke these first 2 games, then I'll take advantage of that because I don't think it's a fluke at all. So I'd maybe try Bam Adebayo at the captain spot, or Jimmy Butler. People might not realize how much his price has gone down. But like he was 13,400 Game 1. He's now 12,000. Like now you can really put in Butler and get some pieces around him. So I like all the Miami guys or Jamal Murray. Like you said, I think Jamal Murray is very much in play, and is probably going to be underowned just because people are looking at the first 2 games.
I think those are three interesting captains. I would also add to Bam. He's a good cash game captain. That's not just a GPP. That's a good cash game captain. He's getting 40 minutes a night. I think the narrative coming into the series was, he's been destroyed by Jokic the last 7 meetings or whatever, and maybe they thought that was going to take away from his DFS performance, but that's not real. He's playing 40 minutes a night. They're actively looking for him to shoot the ball to make Jokic play defense. I think Bam makes for a great cash game captain and a GPP guy. I like the Butler call. The one that's really interesting is the Jamal Murray and captain. Out of all the guys who are projected to score a lot of points tonight, he's by far. He's less than 10% projected ownership in the captain spot. That's a pretty good deal right there. So now my thought would be, though, if I want to go Murray and captain, it kind of leads me to want to fade. If I'm going to try to take the big shot at the big GPP, tonight and the huge money with all the people, maybe a Jokic fade if I'm going Murray and captain. Before I plug in Murray and captain, could you see yourself going down that path, a Jokic fade, if you're playing Murray and captain?
Ooh, I could, yeah. I don't think it's crazy.
In just the hopes that it's a one-off game where Murray erupts and that they heard all the Jokic making Jokic a scorer and not a passer, so he becomes too much of a passer. Maybe he doesn't equal that big salary, and it's Murray scoring about. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, man.
No, I think Jokic at his price, he can put up 50 points and not end up on the winning lineup at all. He could have a great 50 point, a great 50 DraftKings point game and not end up on the winning lineup. He's so expensive. I don't think I'll be fading Jokic entirely. like if you're doing 150 lineups. But yeah, I mean it's a possibility with salary, being somewhat tight and him being so expensive. I think if you're putting Jamal Murray in the captain spot, yeah, I think that's a sound strategy.
Yeah. So you're not going to put in Jokic, Butler, Murray, and Bam. You're not going to put them all four in the same lineup. I don't even think that's physically possible. So one of those guys, at the very least, you're going to have to cut out of your lineup. And most people obviously won't cut out Jokic, so they'll cut out one of the other guys. If we can get all three of those other guys to just hang within maybe 10 points of Jokic, and I think it's possible, the Jokic fade, that's another way you can get out of this tonight. And it's a possible. It's a kind of a long shot, but it's possible, right? Like there's outs to this play right here, I think.
Yeah, I mean, people are going to be really hesitant to fade Jokic, right? And like an optimizer is going to give you Jokic all day, at some spot, right? Whether he's in the captain or the utility. So I think if you are saying, that Jamal Murray has a great game by putting him in the captain spot, I think the guys that are more likely to outperform their price playing at home are actually Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, right? So that leaves, maybe Jokic doesn't get the triple-double, right? Like, maybe he's only getting 5 assists or something, and his scoring is a little bit down. So yeah, I think it's possible, and that gives us salary to play with.
Yeah, so this is a GPP lineup. It's to try to win the big one. So that's what I'm going to plug in there. And if we're fading Jokic, it is strictly to get those other three big guys in there. So I put them all in the lineup already. I went Murray captain, Butler and Bam, next two utility spots. We still got about $4,000 left over. And, you can fade a lot. I don't know that you can fade everything. So the Kevin Love 2,400 in utility, is that a spot we want? I mean, we're different. We know Jokic. Like, we're way off the beaten path here. So I think we can eat a little chalk with Kevin Love, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's, if he's starting, that price is egregious. 2,400. Yeah. So, assuming he's doing something while he's on the court with the minutes that he's getting from being in the starting lineup, he's going to outperform 2,400.
And that leaves us about 4,800 for two spots. And there's so much down in this range tonight. Gabe Vincent has been excellent this series. There's no reason why he won't continue to be on the court a whole bunch. You got Gabe Vincent in that range. KCP, although he hasn't had the breakout shooting game yet, he's on the court for 35 plus minutes in these games. You got Kentavious Caldwell-Pope down there. Bruce Brown is solid. Caleb Martin, Max Strus. Like, everybody thought, he didn't make his three-point shots in game one. He stinks. No, when he actually is making the shots, he's very good fantasy-wise. And they're going to keep letting him plug that away. So Max Strus is cheap. We've got options, a lot of options in this kind of build we can go to. So about 4,800 left per spot, two spots left. Give me one more. Give me your favorite player that would fit in this build that you want to take on here.
I'd actually like Bruce Brown. I like the idea that MPJ is maybe getting a little bit outplayed this series. And he's a younger guy. I wouldn't be surprised to see Denver maybe go with some of the veterans in Jeff Green and Bruce Brown over MPJ. Like, we saw that in game 2. So if he continues to struggle, I would expect to see more Bruce Brown and probably more Jeff Green as well. Actually, Jeff Green is probably one of my favorite plays for this showdown, game 3, because they actually, I think that I guess it's on FanDuel. They made Christian Brown more than Jeff Green, and I would actually expect to see more Jeff Green minutes.
Man, I like the Bruce Brown call. I'm plugging him in. We got one spot left, 4,500. We're not going to fill it out, but obviously there's tons of players you can plug in there. I like the Bruce Brown call for several reasons. He got that good all-around DFS game, and that's fine. But I like your point about Michael Porter Jr. After game 1, Strus struggled. Bad game. What did Spoelstra do? He still went to him and still told him, take all the shots you can. And he lit it up in the first quarter. Spoelstra's a special coach, man. He's really good. Mike Malone, I've seen Mike Malone struggle with personnel decisions before. in my head, I'm watching it. I'm thinking, listen, you got a 6'10" small forward in Michael Porter. He needs to be on the court. You need to let him play through some of this stuff, and he helps you too much. But Mike Malone, he overcompensates on things like this, and we may see Michael Porter Jr. not get very much run in game 3. We may not, I'm not saying it's for sure. I'm not reading his mind or anything, but we may see a lot more Bruce Brown and some of these other guys. MPJ might sit on the bench a little bit more. So I like that call. That's kind of how I'm building it. I'm building it as if maybe Michael Porter Jr. doesn't have a particularly good game and doesn't get a ton of minutes. So with that being said, let's move to FanDuel now. I think on DraftKings where we're fading Jokic, he's probably going to be on 85% of the lineups in some form, utility or cap. So we're already different. So there's not a need to finish off this lineup. You don't have to leave a ton of money on the table because you're already different. You're already doing different things here. So I just think you plug that guy in there. I think we've done a good job of trying to fight for a big time spot in that big tournament. But let's go to FanDuel, where it's a little bit different setup here. MVP, Star, Pro. There's no way we're fading Jokic over here, right? Like that's a 0% chance.
Yeah, the salary is much less of a consideration on FanDuel because there's no multiplier in the points get multiplied in the MVP, the Star, and the Pro spots. But the salary does not. So Jokic is going to be my highest owned MVP, and I'll be looking to get different somewhere else.
All right, let's go ahead and plug that in there. Just without the multiplier, it's tough to do that different. So let's go to Star now, where we start to get to some pretty good decisions here. What's your opinion on the second highest scoring player in this game?
It's tough because, FanDuel reduced Jimmy Butler's salary by 1,000, and again, he's playing at home. So there's a desire to get different, but maybe there's a desire to get different in the last spots, in the utility spots, in the Pro spot, than in the MVP and Star. I mean, I could see putting Jimmy Butler in at the Star spot, in the MVP spot. I think it's going to be hard to get away from him at the Star. But you could maybe put Butler in it at Pro. But yeah, he's going to be on the lineup most likely.
Yeah, it's just the way they set it up over here. It's tough to fade Jimmy Butler or not put him in this second spot, more or less. Like who's going to outside of Jokic, who we already have. We're kind of just looking at raw points on FanDuel, and who's going to outscore him? Well, there's a chance Jamal Murray can, although Butler's been right there with him each game, and now he's back at home, like you said. There's a chance Bam can, but most games, if we played this series out 20 games in a row, Jimmy Butler's going to outscore Bam in most of those games, even though we haven't seen it yet. But so I'm with the Jimmy Butler thing here, and we'll just get different somewhere else. And we got to start in the Pro spot. Let's start to get different in the Pro because I don't even think we can afford a Jamal Murray or even a Bam Adebayo here. I think we've got to go down cheaper. Or do you want to go to a utility? Do you have a utility that's really cheap that you want to plug in there and work it, reverse work it here?
So I think one thing that's noteworthy is that Michael Porter Jr.'s price is down 2,000 from game one. And so I think if you're using some optimized projections, you're probably going to get a lot of MPJ, and I don't necessarily like that. I mean, he could have a huge bounce back game, but I think it's more likely he sees reduced minutes. So it's a little bit tough because also Kevin Love is priced up way more on FanDuel than on DraftKings. Like FanDuel reacted and priced him up 2,000 from his game 2 price. Whereas DraftKings only won a few hundred. So as we talked about, in the DraftKings part, I like Bruce Brown. And you're going to have to go with 3 pretty affordable pieces at the Pro and the 2 utility spots. So yeah, you probably can't put in Jamal Murray or Bam Adebayo if you're going Jokic and Butler. So I think the range we're looking at is the Bruce Brown, Gabe Vincent salary range, with KCP think a pretty good value piece at 7,500.
That's your pro. That's your pro selection. One of those guys.
Yeah, I think one of those three, and
Okay.
I think the one that I like for ownership is probably Bruce Brown.
Let's plug in Brown and see how this works out. And we'll go to utility, 8,800 for 2 spots. The Gabe Benson call. I mean, he's just rock steady. He's going to be on the floor a bunch and take a bunch of 3-point shots, and if he's hitting them, he's going to be great. So I like those calls. You mentioned in the previous segment, Jeff Green is on your radar if you want to go super cheap down there. I don't mind that. We're back at home. So, and we should point out that it looks like Tyler Hero's not going to come back for game 3. So Duncan Robinson is still in play here. If you want to go that route, he's only 7K. If he's hitting his 3-point shots, he can be really good from a DFS perspective. He had nothing going into the fourth quarter in game 2. And then all of a sudden, boom, he starts hitting a couple shots and he ends up with some points, which any points helps you in this showdown stuff. So utility spots, who do you want to plug in now?
We could try Jeff Green because he's pretty cheap. He's way too cheap at 6,500. There isn't really a reason that Christian Brown should be more expensive than Jeff Green, and that gives us a good amount of money left.
It does.
It's kind of an MPJ fade, but if we're fading MPJ, then I like going with the beneficiaries. So I think they're going to be Bruce Brown and Jeff Green.
Okay, so if I plug that one in, we have 11K left for that last spot. That's rough because that leaves us Aaron Gordon and $0 left in the salary cap. Which and zero out your roster, you're probably going to be duplicated, especially with Jokic and Butler up top. And I do like Aaron Gordon. He's on the court for 36 to 38 minutes each one of these games. If the shots fall for him a little bit, he's gonna crush it. And we already think Michael Porter Jr. is going to get maybe a little reduced run. So Aaron Gordon's interesting. KCP is so cheap that we're looking at around 50% ownership. I don't know if we want to go that route. So, yeah, I think we're kind of left here in a weird spot where I think a guy like Gabe Vincent, leave 1,000 on the table, get us another Miami player. Because the way you construct it, if we go with another Denver guy, we've got a 4-1 build, and Miami's at home. I don't know that I love a 4-1 Denver build in Miami. Just me. Gabe gets us another Miami guy in there at home, leaves a little money on the table. Or you can go back to a Caleb Martin, who, because he's not starting, isn't going to get any kind of love at all. But, man, who's to say that they pull Kevin Love after his first rotation and have a big Caleb Martin game? I don't know. What's your thoughts on this very last spot and how much money we're going to leave on the table and what we're going to do with it?
I think any of the Miami guys are in play here, and because they leave some salary on the table and they could all potentially take a little bit away from each other. So yeah, we could end up going with like either Kevin Love or Caleb Martin. Like let's say Kevin Love starts and he plays like big minutes, more than plays regular starters minutes, plays 30. Then we're leaving a ton of salary on the table. But like that's a conceivable thing that could happen. Like Kyle Lowry. I mean, Kyle Lowry could come in and have a big game. Like these veterans for Miami, like they don't need to have much left in the gas tank after tonight, right? It's only going to be at most 4 more games after tonight. So to your point real quick, Kyle Lowry has been on the floor 24 and then 25 minutes in these first 2 games. I think we saw a game against Boston where he just fell into like a bunch of steals. Like if he falls into some steals and hits a couple 3-pointers, he's optimal tonight. So to your point, you can continue, but I think that's a good point. Yeah, I think this is a good spot. Like with this particular lineup, I mean, we're a little bit different with like Bruce Brown in the pro spot. But yeah, I think if we left a bunch of money on the table, there's actually a bunch of like feasible options we could go with. And I like the idea of like targeting one of the Miami guys because they're all a little bit cheaper. They'd all leave some salary on the table, and any one of them could see a little bit of extra run, get an extra couple blocks and steals. Like, yeah, maybe Caleb Martin comes in. Like his minutes didn't get hit that much not starting. What really happened is Haywood Highsmith just played a lot less minutes. So like, yeah, like, I mean, would you be shocked to see Caleb Martin get like come in off the bench, get 2 blocks, 2 steals. No, I think Caleb Martin could be a really sneaky play here.
We're trying to win a big tournament. That's the way our build so far hasn't been necessarily a super contrarian build. So I like the Caleb Martin. That we're projecting at 4% ownership total in this game. So that's definitely different. Leaves 1,500 on the table. I think that gets us way different enough to maybe not be duplicated, 1,000 times if it ends up being the best build out there. So I'm gonna plug Caleb Martin in there. I think that's a pretty good build there, and then we'll leave it right there. There's only so much you can do when you have a guy like Jokic and a setup like FanDuel. Like there's only so much you can do as far as being contrarian. I think this is as good of a contrarian build while still remaining semi-optimal. Like, of course, I could plug Cody Zeller into the pro spot and hope for a career game. Yeah, obviously that's not going to be duplicated, but you're not leaving yourself very much of a chance to really do anything. But I think this lineup does, right? So I think that's it, man.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Cody Zeller massive brawl idea, right? Everybody gets ejected. But yeah,
that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome. But and there was at some point here in this series, maybe we get the Udonis Haslem farewell game, and then man, we'll crush in DFS if that happens. And you got a Udonis Haslem lineup, right?
I was looking at that because, you got to think about, especially on DraftKings, you got to think about who of the $1,000 price guys is going to get some run, and everyone thinks it's going to be like Nikola Jovic and Omar Yurtseven, but Udonis Haslem's probably going to get some minutes, right? Like if there's garbage time in one of the later games,
yes,
probably get a minute. So something to keep in mind.
For sure. But guys, that's game 3 for us. And we will be back on Friday looking at game 4 and seeing if any of this stuff changes. But until then, good luck in all those GPPs. That's Squirrel Patrol. I was your host, Headchopper. We'll see you on Friday. But for now, we're out of here.